The new Siena poll out this morning finds that New Yorkers have high hopes for Governor-elect Andrew Cuomo and his ability to get things done in Albany, specifically on adding job creation and balancing the budget. Meanwhile, however, the poll also suggests that voters would like Cuomo to focus on these issues immediately and keep those pesky politicos and pundits from speculating that the governor-elect is already setting his sights on the White House. Joining me now to discuss this latest survey is Siena pollster Steve Greenberg. Steve, how are you?
I'm great, Liz.
Nice to see you.
And good to be here.
The White House, wherever do you get that idea?
Well, you know, stories have been written already. I mean, less than 2 weeks after he gets elected, there's already been these speculation stories in the tabloids, but also in AP and other places. So we decided we better ask once, and I'm hoping just once for a long time, and voters make it very clear. 85% of voters say they don't like this speculation. They'd like to see him focus on being governor and succeed at governor first. 11% of voters said, oh, that's great. I really like the speculation because it shows New York's prominent on the national political scene.
Well, you know, that's actually interesting because New York has lost a lot of prominence, one might argue. Today we have the ethics trial of Charlie Rangel. Then he was no longer a Ways and Means Committee. We're going to lose 2 House seats. We don't have Schumer.
Maybe 1.
Probably more like 2. I mean, but even so, 1 is bad enough relative to other places. Then you have Chuck Schumer as the senior senator, not going to be the Senate Majority Leader. I mean, so they have a point in hoping that New York gets clout and is not just, say, the ATM state.
Well, you know, look, New York hasn't elected a president since FDR. We've had several governors who've wanted to be president. Mario Cuomo, George Pataki's still keeping his name alive for 2012. And I think voters like it. I think voters actually like when the New York governor is talked about for president. But Andrew Cuomo's the governor-elect.
Right,
He's not the governor.
In the door yet.
You know, let him serve a year, 2, 3, 5. Let him accomplish something. Let him turn New York around. And then I think voters would be clamoring at the bit to see that kind of speculation.
So you know what's interesting to me about this is that 48% of people that you spoke to, that Siena spoke to, say that developing programs to help create new jobs is their top priority for Andrew Cuomo when he in fact does take office, which will be January 1st. Not, however, enacting a property tax cap, which is something that he ran on very strongly, and then not ethics, which is also something he ran very strongly on.
Number 1 is jobs, far and away. Number 2 is budget. And those 2 issues are number 1 and 2 with everybody. Republicans flip it. Republicans make budget number 1, jobs number 2. But for virtually everybody, it's jobs 1, budget 2. Property tax cap, a distant 3rd, and ethics reform and nonpartisan redistricting, 4th and 5th, way down the list. Voters are concerned about jobs. Given this economic climate, they're worried about jobs for them, their family, their neighbors. They want to see their kids stay in New York and have jobs here to be able to do that. So that's number 1. And they know how much the state budget does affect their lives. Even though we've seen over the years, Liz, and you've watched it, with late budget after late budget, and voters aren't concerned about late budgets per se, but they are concerned about a final budget and how that budget affects their lives, whether it's taxes, spending cuts, programs that they care about. And so that's what they want Andrew Cuomo to focus on.
And he has said, actually, he's made it quite clear that the deficit is significant. It's significant in this year, more than $350 million, we find out today, then $9 billion at least going forward. And yet voters say, we want you to deal with the budget, but we don't want you to cut health care and education, which makes up the bulk of the spending in New York.
It further complicates the governor-elect's life.
We would like you to pull a rabbit out of the proverbial hat. Good luck with that.
In their ideal world, that's what they would want to see happen. Look, we asked this question, or a similarly worded question, back in February and March at the beginning of this year's budget debate. And the question is, given how that health care and education are the largest portions of the state budget, given that you need to close a multi-billion-dollar gap, what do you want to see Governor-elect Cuomo and the legislature do? Cut both of them? Cut one but not the other? Don't cut either, even if it means raising taxes. And that was part of the wording of the question. 52% say don't cut either, even if it means raising taxes.
Right.
When we ask this question...
But he said he won't raise taxes. That's the thing. So where's the money going to come from?
That's what further complicates his life in trying to resolve the issue effectively and responsibly, but also keeping voters happy at the same time. It's going to be tough. But when we asked this question back in February, it came immediately after voters told us that their top 2 priorities for state government in 2010 were reducing state spending and cutting state taxes. And then they still said, don't cut education and health care.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. I want to also touch on this. Voters want Democrats and Republicans to share power and jointly run the Senate. That would require a 31-31 deadlock. I mean, that's what would have to happen.
Well, they want to see it regardless of that. Look, they've seen the last 2 years of 32-30 Democratic rule for most of that. For a month of that, we had the coup where nobody was in charge.
Right.
I think what voters are saying is we don't care if it's 32-30 Democrats still or 32-30 Republicans taking back control. We don't like that idea. What we want to see is the Democratic leadership, the Republican leadership of the two houses get together, put aside partisanship, jointly control the Senate, because we're sick of this dysfunction that we're seeing in the Senate. I know it is an unrealistic goal.
I'd like world peace too, Steve, but I don't think that's
But that's what voters want to see, other than Republicans. Republicans strongly say they want to see the Republicans back in control.
Well, there are fewer of them in New York. That's the problem.
That is the problem for them, but also it is that they have no other branch of state government.
Right.
I mean, the Democrats control every other statewide office. They control the Assembly. I think the Republicans want this notion that Dean Skelos talks about of checks and balances. But I think overall what the voters are saying is put aside partisanship, do work for us.
Now, I just want to, we unfortunately are out of time, but this is online, just in case people want to check it out themselves. The crosstabs, of course, are there also. Go ahead and tell us where to find it.
www.siena.edu/SRI for the Siena Research Institute.
Very good. Thanks very much, Steve Greenberg.
Thank you, Liz.